accident, you need a lawyer, and you deserve an advocate. Because every accident has a ripple effect. It affects your time, your health, your ability to make money, everything. That's where the advocates can help. Speaking with an attorney is simple and 100% free. We're available 24/7 for your convenience, and we'll take on the claims process so you can rest easy. Because you're not just a client to us, you're a person, and you deserve the best help you can get. You deserve an advocate.
This is The Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find The Monty Show, streaming live and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube. And now, here's Monty.
Hey, The Monty Show live on Thursday, February 20th, 2025. The Four Nations tournament comes to an end tonight. We are leading with hockey on this program. Presented,
we're Team Canada homers,
right,
by the way.
Wayne Gretzky's going to score goals.
Yeah.
Wayne doesn't play. Okay, let's move on to the Advocates.
Hey, Mario.
At theadvocates.com, the best injury attorneys in the business. Hands down. It's one of the worst days of your life when you get in a car accident. Lord knows there's a ton of ice and snow out there today across this great country. And stuff. If you get into an accident, if you get hurt at work today, if you slip and fall today, it's terrible. It's not what anybody wants to deal with. So find somebody who can fight for you. That's the Advocates. Clear, risk-free advice when you need it the most. Chat with an injury attorney live online, 24/7, 365 at theadvocates.com. I'm actually really fired up for the Four Nations tournament tonight. Yes, we are going to talk about Greg Sankey. Yes, we are going to talk about college football. The world is ending. Nukes and bombs.
Everything
your
sucks.
mom. Yeah, it's terrible. Stay hard. Mizzou's one of the top 5 basketball teams in the country, and you're pissed about that. We get it, right? We get it. We're going to talk about it. How fired up are you for Four Nations tonight?
Super fired up. I mean, I think that, anytime it's USA versus the world, it's a great environment. And I think that, the way the first game went with the physicality and the Kachuk brothers and just everything that went on, it provided a great time. And honestly, I don't know, they were talking about it on SportsCenter this morning. I don't know which way is the best way to lean in this game. I could see Canada getting over with all the skill and all the guys.
You're not beating Canada twice in a row.
Yeah,
I have a real problem believing that.
Yeah, so I mean, the odds or the logic would say, hey, Canada's going to look at the tape. They're going to figure out, hey, where do we get beat? How do we avoid getting mixed up in the physicality? And actually play a hockey game here. And Team USA, I'm sure, is going to double down on physicality and playing the game that way.
The NBA needs to really be mindful because this Four Nations tournament, it's the kind of moment that can light a fan base on fire. And when I say that, what I mean is the National Hockey League and the NHL is the fourth sport by anybody's measure. My question is, what's the second sport? Because it's not the NBA right now.
Right.
And I have to think college football and football in general is number one. The NFL is number one by far, not close. College football is, I would guess, if you want to break it out like that, college football is second. But you better be careful here if you are the NBA, because you could be last. If we go NFL 1, college football 2, I think baseball's third. I think the NHL, if this Four Nations, if the U.S. wins the Four Nations, I think the NHL will be third by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a good chance of that. And I also think, what the NBA doesn't like to do, or maybe it just doesn't have the same culture as the NHL this way, is they don't, hockey games have this certain vibe to them. They have this physical,
right,
sort of grind to them. And the NBA doesn't really have that vibe. And we've always talked about how the NBA needs to get back to being a more physical league and a tougher league. And, the dynamics need to change a little bit. And I don't know, obviously the NBA has tried to get creative with all these different tournaments. You got the play-in tournament, you got tournaments for the All-Star break, you got the playoff tournament. We've got tournaments all over the place in the NBA. But I just think that ultimately, the reason that this Four Nations thing caught fire and is working is because it's it's at the country level. It's USA versus whoever. And that gives fans, just sports fans in general. I don't care what you're a fan of. It could be pickleball. I don't care.
And I remind you, it's at TD Garden.
Yeah. So like if you're a sports fan in this country and Team USA, the basketball team, the hockey team, the baseball team, like Team USA is playing,
the knitting team,
you're watching. Yeah.
The
chess team,
I agree. And I look at the fact that Team USA is healthy. They have a goaltending advantage. This is going to be tight. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult for Team USA to win this game and beat Canada twice in a week. But it's going to be phenomenal, and I'm going to be watching it. It's on ESPN.
And you're damn right we're doing prize picks on it later on the show.
Yes, we are. I am stoked about it. And I don't love that Team USA went to sleep the other night against Sweden, but the game was meaningless. You need to come out tonight with your hair on fire. So I don't know, just in the comment section, is anybody excited for Four Nations, for this hockey game, for this penultimate match of this Four Nations tournament tonight?
Yeah, I just don't know how you wouldn't be.
Is anybody excited about it? Because I don't feel like, and this is the problem hockey has. Are you excited for the national championship of college football? Yes. Are you excited for the Super Bowl? Yes. Are you excited for the NBA Finals? Yes. Are you excited for the Four Nations championship game?
Well, Monty, what is that?
What's Four Nations?
What's Four Nations?
Is that like some kind of rugby thing? I think that's the problem. There's not enough publicity and there's not enough push behind this. I think if I said to you, if I walked up to the garden variety sports fan, would you know what Four Nations is, or would you know what TGL is?
Probably TGL, honestly.
Probably TGL.
Honestly, especially after Tiger did what Tiger did the last time.
I think it's probably TGL and donuts. My wife, the hockey nut, thinks those fights were staged for ratings. No, there's real heat between those two clubs.
Why do we always do that? Why does it have to be a thing where it's staged? This is a hockey game we're talking about, not a basketball game.
I think, with all due respect, and donuts, that tells me your wife or you have never been around the culture of hockey. One, it's incredibly dangerous to fight like that. Most people want to look at the hands and the face of people when they're fighting. Look at hockey players' feet when they're fighting. Look at the torque on their legs. See how many guys break their legs fighting in hockey? It is incredibly dangerous. It is incredibly dangerous, is what I would say. So the awkward guy, if Canada loses, do they become the 51st state? But I thought it was a Gulf of Canada already.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Isn't it? I might have missed that. Noel Ramirez. Hello, Noel. Is that a Puerto Rican flag? Nice. Hockey is like the only sport where the U.S. has true rivals other than baseball, and that's stretching it because people don't consider other baseball countries as rivals. We have no idea what the Caribbean series is about. Yeah. And I think that's a Puerto Rican flag. As a Puerto Rican, you clearly understand the difference between a baseball and a pelota.
Yeah.
It is big time difference. Stadium Guy James, I'll watch the NHL hockey playoffs if Dallas is part of it. Well, and I think there's a lot of that. Norge Coog, if it was based on talent, Russia would be included in this tournament, but it's not. And, you know, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who said, the tournament's kind of downgraded because the Russians aren't here. Can you have the Russians in this tournament? I don't think you can. Different show, probably. Can we talk about how popular curling is getting? What a sport. Easy now. Yeah,
you guys in Tucson have a lot of hockey rinks around, huh?
You know, Sal? Bro, what's going on with Arizona basketball? Do anybody see? Am I the only one who thinks Missouri's one of the best teams in the country that nobody's talking about? They beat Alabama.
Yeah.
They beat another top 5 club. We don't talk a lot of college basketball on this show, but you know. Welcome to the nightmare. Hockey is life, by far my favorite sport. Is it really? Wow. Okay, I like it. Shay McClanahan, hello. Monty, why doesn't ESPN require or even guide the 4 conferences into an NFL model? It just makes sense to do so. Okay, so you want to choose violence this morning, Jay. Can't even talk a little frozen puck, can we?
Can't even have a little fun.
All right, let's rip Greg Sankey. After we shout out our guy, DK, who's been a member of the show.
Nice.
If you're here right now, please hit the like button. If you're not a member, consider joining. $1.99 a month. That's all it costs. It supports the show. It helps us pay off all of this equipment that we have in our studio. And we're thinking about getting a new wrap on the wall. Your donations help us pay for things like wraps, because we've got to put Fort Dodge, Kansas on the wall.
Yeah.
I love one of my favorite things about the show before we rip Greg Sankey is that people are like, hey, man, can you put Lenexa, Kansas on the wall? No, we can't.
What, are you nuts?
No, we can't. No, we can't. All right, let's get into the Greg Sankey thing, because I think it's a big deal. Is Greg Sankey the villain of college football? I don't know how he's not. You're going to hear from Greg in a moment about some of the things he said, including the fact that he is a steward and he is watching out for the entirety of college football. And he got crushed for this yesterday. So you know that the Big Ten and the SEC had meetings in New Orleans that did not include anybody but themselves, where they were making decisions about the future of the college football playoff. Should it be expanded to 14 or 16? And of course, they didn't come out and tell you what they talked about. They talked about, different, qualifications, buys for teams, how to stack the bracket, all this stuff that nobody else in the room would tell you what's going to happen, or, hey, we need to take this back to the committee and it's got to be unanimous. Like all this stuff, it's just assumed because the Big Ten and the SEC met yesterday. That's what's going to happen. And largely, I would agree with that sentiment. But here's the problem, and here's where I can't go off the edge of the cliff with everybody else. Greg Sankey's doing exactly what Greg Sankey should be doing. I know you hate that. But tell me I'm wrong. If you were in the SEC and you were a president, an athletic director, a football coach, or a fan of any SEC football team, tell me that Greg Sankey isn't doing exactly what you want him to be doing. Tell me that if you could, you wouldn't swap Brett Yormark or Tim Pernetti or Gloria Nevarez for Greg Sankey, because he is, I don't even think it's close, the most powerful commissioner in all of college athletics, who understands how to build and grow a business model. And I don't think he should be vilified for that. But Jake, I actually absolutely think that most people view Greg Sankey as the villain of college football.
Yeah, well, I don't think Greg does himself any favors, with the quote that everyone is referencing, which is, hey, we would still be in a 4-team college football playoff if I was only thinking about the SEC. And the part that's frustrating with that kind of a quote out of Greg Sankey is that we all know, without a doubt, unequivocally, the only reason we're expanding the college football playoff is so that the SEC and the Big Ten can get more auto bids into the process, right? So that they can have more teams into the college football playoff, and they can make more money, and they can benefit at a higher level. Like, we all know that. That's not like some, secret or rocket science or just some like crazy thought. And so I think the reason that coming out of these meetings, people were pissed off at Greg Sankey and people are a little bit, burned out on the antics is because Greg is sitting here essentially trying to grandstand and say, hey, like we're only talking about expansion because we're trying to include everybody. If it was just, if I was just thinking about the SEC, we'd still be at 4 teams, which, number one, I disagree with that. I don't think if you were just thinking about the SEC, you would still be at 4 teams. I think if you were just thinking about the SEC, you'd want to try and get as many teams as you possibly could, which is exactly what you're doing. So I don't disagree with you that, yes, Greg Sankey is the best commissioner, the most powerful guy. He's the guy in the room that's dominating the conversation. But I also don't agree with Greg that the only reason that the Big Ten and the SEC are meeting and the only reason that these conversations are happening is because he's looking out for everybody in college football. Because we know that the ultimate goal here is for these two conferences to make the most money. And I think that is why people are so frustrated. That is why people get sort of burned out on this whole concept that Greg's trying to push forward, that, he's trying to be, a steward of sorts. He's trying to represent everybody in college football. Now, I think for fans, the thing where fans go too far when they get off thinking that, teams in the Big 12 or the ACC or, the Mountain West or what will be the new Pac-12 or the American, deserve the same opportunity that the SEC and the Big Ten have created for themselves. That somehow, because they all got here together, that means that moving forward, they all got to be on the same level. That's not true. So as a fan, you have to be able to say, okay, I disagree with what Greg is saying, but the reality is that they do control the conversation and that they are going to do what they see fit. And I think
why is here's the rub here. Why is that wrong? Why is it wrong that Greg Sankey is out here talking about doing what's best for the SEC, making more money for the SEC? And I'm not getting into the specifics of it because we're all tired of talking about it. I wish the Big 12 and I wish the ACC would do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part where why are we vilifying Greg Sankey for doing what he should be doing? And again, I don't disagree with you that this is the quote that Jake referenced a minute ago.
Yeah. If
I was just representing the SEC, we'd still have a 14 playoff, and they would, because I think whether we all agree with it or not, if there was a 14 playoff, there's a real good chance it'd be 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams. I think there's a real good chance of that. I think there's a real good chance it would have been Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, and Texas this year. I think there's a real good chance of that. And again, I don't know why that's a bad thing for Greg Sankey to be saying that.
Because people felt like he's misrepresenting what he's trying to do. Meaning, hey, you're sitting here saying that you're only because it's the inference, right? He didn't explicitly say it, but it's the inference in the quote, which is, hey, we're only expanding because I have to think about the rest of college football. That's the inference in his quote. And people are pissed about it because people feel like that Greg is being selfish and that he, is trying to play both sides of the fence. He's trying to expand it, to make a bunch of money for the SEC and the Big Ten and do this, but at the same time say that he's looking out for the rest of college football.
But then you can't have it the 9-game issue.
Right.
If you're the SEC, is it smart for you to play 9 conference games? I would tell you it's not. It's not. Because you're going to have Alabama lose a conference game that you're going to have Georgia lose a conference game that you're going to have. That league is so difficult and so deep. And I know the Big Ten's the best league anybody's ever seen, but you look at the SEC, you play 9 games. The good news is if you go undefeated in a 9-game SEC season, good night, you're going to probably be the number 1 team in the country.
Facts.
Right? And because as I continue to tell you, and I don't know that we have any clarity on it, the conference championship stuff is going to come to an end in one form or fashion. It's not going to be. I'm telling you, this will be the last year that we have conference championship games executed in the way that we are seeing them. Because the Big Ten and the SEC are no longer going to allow their championship game to damage a team's ability to get into the college football playoff.
Right.
That's not going to happen anymore. And you are going to change the way that they do that. 9 games, I think that's probably going to happen, and I can see both sides of it. I don't think it's good for the SEC, and I think it's fantastic for the SEC, but what does it do? It eliminates another non-conference game. That's what it does.
Right.
And they shouldn't, let's be honest. Should Alabama have been playing Mercer in November? No, absolutely not. But what that means is you're probably going to lose a really important game in a kickoff format. You're going to lose the I always point to the SC Auburn game all those years ago with the bubblegum murdering Pete Carroll as their head coach, where they go to Atlanta and they beat the hell out of Auburn.
Right.
We're going to lose that kind of game. Because if I'm playing 9 SEC games, I can't afford to play a Notre Dame. I can't afford to play a USC style of game. So I see it both ways. The other thing that I think you better understand here is, I think that if you are Gloria Nevarez, Tim Pernetti at the AAC, Gloria Nevarez at the Mountain West, if you are, Brett Yormark, Jim Phillips, are you going to eliminate the first round buys willingly?
No.
And why are you not going to do that? Why do you want the first round buy? Because this is why you want the first round buy. The $8 million payout. What happens if Arizona State doesn't get a first round buy? They don't make $8 million last year. Because what happens? You automatically go to the quarterfinal, which means you get an $8 million payout.
Yeah.
So if you're the Mountain West, if you're the ACC, do you want the buys eliminated for conference champions? You don't, because that costs you money. That costs you money. And if you are, dude, you had better not lose those buys. If you're the Big 12 in the ACC, you had better not lose those buys.
I mean, I think anybody who's not the Big 10 in the SEC has to do everything they can to make as much money as possible. Whether it's first round buys, whether it's we've obviously talked about a variety of different factors that allow them to make money or are opportunities to make money. And I think, again, the question of the day is Greg Sankey the villain of college football? And I do think in some situations, yes, he is the villain of college football. He is. Like, that's the reality of the situation, but it's not really of his own doing most times. You guys and a lot of people don't like Greg because he happens to be sitting on top of the mountain and looking down on you. That's why you don't like Greg. You don't like Greg because the SEC, in my opinion, is the best conference in the country, closely followed by the Big 10, and then it's basically everybody else, and Greg's got all the power.
Why do we hate the Patriots? Why do we hate the Chiefs? Why do we hate the SEC? Why do we hate the Big 10? Because they're better than you.
But I do think this nonsense
it's as simple as that.
Like saying that quote out of Greg Sankey, in my opinion, is nonsense. I would not have said that. I would not have said that, if I wasn't having to think about the rest of college football, we'd still be in a 4-team playoff. I just disagree with that because you're ultimately, your goal is to make as much money as possible. And the way you do that is by expanding the format and putting more teams in.
Yeah, but look, he made clear today, this is Pete Thamel, ESPN. SEC Commissioner Sankey made clear today he wanted to share with his colleagues potential next steps for the college football playoff in 2026 and beyond before articulating them publicly.
Okay, so when you read that, what do you actually take that to mean? Does
that mean... we're going to go and let our other constituents know what we're doing, and then we'll tell you. Because we already made the decision. We just want to inform some folks before.
Bet you weren't expecting this one
publicly.
That's what it means, dude.
I mean, we're gonna run
out a boardroom and we're gonna tell everybody what the plan is, and we're gonna have a whiteboard meeting and we're gonna make sure that we have a bunch of graphs and stuff to justify it.
Before we tell you how we're gonna screw the G5, we want to tell them in person.
Yeah,
that's what he's saying.
Like, come on.
I mean, but again. How did we get here? Because they won more games than you did. And the Big 12 is a great example of this. The ACC is a big example of this. You guys were busy in court. We were busy winning games.
And I also might add, if you want to go way back in history, when Florida State decided to go to the ACC versus the SEC, you only did that because you wanted to take the easy route. The SEC's never taken the easy route. The SEC's always tried to create a conference that plays the biggest and baddest games and has the biggest and baddest teams. And they're starting to see the fruits of that labor come through now, right? With the control that they have over the last probably 5 to 7 years of the playoff format. So again, yes, he is the villain of college football. And Tony Petitti is, is Robin to Batman for sure. But that doesn't mean that you should be out here saying things like, hey, Greg Sankey is just trying to screw all the little guys and is just trying to look out for himself. I think that Greg Sankey, yes, is going to prioritize the SEC, and we've heard that through a variety of different clips we've played on this show, right? But at the same time, when you're prioritizing the SEC and the Big Ten, the little guy plays a role on some level. You need the little guy on some level to facilitate what you're trying to do.
Well, and I've told you the right way to go about seeding the college football playoff is not to have first-round buys. And it makes too much sense for the SEC and the Big Ten. And you look at what Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey said yesterday, they want seeding based directly on rankings and no automatic buys for conference champions. So guess what we're going to get? That's what we're going to get.
Yeah.
And I think this is where Brett Yormark is going to have to show some balls and some chutzpah here, because it would be easy to roll over and lay down, which is the absolute wrong thing to do.
Right.
Because what I could see happening, and what I've heard that I think the Big Ten and the SEC are going to do, is I could see them having their own, I don't know, is it mini tournament? Is it, hey, we get 8 automatic qualifiers. We're going to have a December tournament where essentially the top 8 teams in the Big Ten and the SEC play each other in the last 2 weeks of the season to determine their 8 automatic qualifiers.
Not to eliminate anybody, just to determine seeding.
Yeah.
Which I think is a key point.
And there's nothing you can do to stop that. And they don't need your permission. And why would they do that? Well, because their TV partners would want it. I think you want it. I think I want it, because it's big football games in big venues that have a ton on the line. And if I'm going to get Ohio State versus Georgia to be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, I'm going to watch that.
I want it.
And if I'm going to get USC versus Tennessee, I'm going to watch that. And what does it do? It's their own playoff, because it gives them more money that is exclusively for them.
Yeah.
It gives them more branding, which is exclusively for them. I'm telling you, they're not talking about breaking away from college football. None of that. They're talking about making more money, playing bigger games in bigger venues on big TV stations. Because who are they in business with? And I know you hate when I say this. They're in business with ESPN and ABC.
Yes.
They are in business with CBS, NBC, and Fox. And Notre Dame's going to do what they're told to do. So they don't need the Big 12 and the ACC to be like, okay, buddy. They don't need that, because they have all the biggest brands. They have all the biggest contracts. They have all the money, and you don't.
Facts.
And that happened because you guys were busy suing each other, because you guys were busy fighting off the Pac-12 when they tried to take your biggest brands. Then you let your biggest brands walk out the door to go to the SEC. And if that's not something you embrace, I would just, again, point you to the money. Where's the money in college football? It's not in the ACC or the Big 12. It is wholly in the SEC and the Big 10. And it's remarkable how far behind the Big 12 is here. Remarkable.
Yeah.
And when we look at the top 25 funded NIL programs, there's a trend here, friends.
Yeah.
There is a trend.
And that's why I say, I mean, now looking back, obviously hindsight's 2020, but now looking back to when Texas and OU left the conference, it would have made sense at that time to 100% adjust the league to performance-based revenue sharing to incentivize people to start winning more.
Yep.
And that hasn't quite happened yet, but they're working towards that. And I have to say, like, out of all the stuff that happened in the ACC, I can appreciate performance-based revenue sharing as an incentive to get people to do the right things and actually care. Because again, and I don't want to turn this into Oklahoma State hour or Baylor hour or whatever. We do that all the time. But when we have these conversations about the SEC and Greg Sankey, it's hard for me not to say, well, hey man, like, you're sitting here complaining about, what the SEC and the Big Ten are doing and calling Greg Sankey a villain. I don't disagree he can be a villain, but maybe he'd be less of a villain if you were actually competitive. If you had 5 ASUs instead of 1, if you had 5 teams, 6 teams like the SEC does that compete to get into the CFP every year, then now we're having a different conversation.
Can't have the Utah situation again.
Yeah, that's
can't have the Florida State situation again.
It's embarrassing that programs on that level have those it's embarrassing that yes, you wrote it out with Cam that long, but that you had nothing behind him in terms of recruiting and NIL. You should have had a quarterback behind him ready to go with all due respect. Yeah, with all due respect to Isaac Wilson, like you had to have someone else behind him coming into the season. And yeah, Florida State, like I don't know whose idea it was to go out and get DJU, but that was one of the dumbest things you decided to go ahead and do.
I still can't believe how bad he was.
Like especially in a time when you're as an institution, you're running your mouth and suing people and making all this noise. You thought that was a good idea. So I don't know, man. Like we're sitting here before the show talking about like, hey, like, what are our takes? Like what, where are we at on this? And, I'm just sitting here thinking like, yeah, dude, like Greg is a villain and plays the role well. And I do disagree with what he said yesterday, but I can't blame him for the behavior. I mean, what else is the guy supposed to do? Is the guy supposed to just walk out the door and not make the money and not push his conference forward? Like, no, of course not.
But I think Mike Smith makes the best point that the blue, it's not a vest, it's a jacket.
Dude called it a puffy.
It's a
blue puffy.
Hey, look here, man.
Nice.
I love you professionally, Mike. Jay McClanahan. Monty. Jay.
Monty.
Should the Big 12 and the ACC have their own games against each other at the end of the year? Well, here's the problem.
Teen, you're not going to like this. This is going to piss people off.
If a fish poops in the ocean and no one's there to see it, did the fish really poop in the ocean? Like, Alabama, what's the biggest brand in the Alabama, Ohio State? How many millions are watching that?
I don't give a piss about nothing but the Tide, baby.
Oak State and who's the biggest? Oak State and SMU. How many hundreds of people are watching that? Okay, I'm a dick. I freely admit it.
Is Monty the villain of the Monty Show?
Yes. Unanimous vote. But you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have the cachet of a Michigan,
Oregon,
Texas, Oregon. It doesn't have the cachet.
It doesn't work both ways.
You're not going to make the money because you're not going to get the TV viewership. That's the problem. And I also go back to, why did you surrender Tarrant County? Boy,
another great question, dude. What are we doing?
What are you doing in Las Vegas?
Like,
the Big 12 has essentially thrown up the white flag in Dallas and moved their Big 12 media days to Vegas. Mistake. Absolute mistake. I just look at the scale of things, Jay, and I don't think it's bad thinking. But is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, is there enough butter for all the toast?
And I'm going to say there's probably not. David Persons, hello. Does Greg Sankey take off his Darth Vader mask when he eats? I don't think so.
But
I think
does he salt his McMuffin as much?
I think he does with dead Skeeters.
Yeah.
Or dead conference presidents.
Right.
I think he just opens up the mouth gap. He gapes his mouth. Probably,
quote, he gapes his mouth.
probably too much.
Stay hard.
I mean, I'm just saying. And donuts. Mountain State's 50 degrees next week. 50 degrees this weekend. Eric Wasikowskinator. Y'all just hate success. That's why the G5 is irrelevant. Big Ten, SEC are in control. 14-team playoff would make sense. Totally agree. You hate him because you ain't him.
Yeah.
And it's what we do in sports, right? Greg Sankey's not a villain. He's an incredible administrator. That's the truth. That is the truth. Greg Sankey is excellent at his job. And if you are a fan of, like, I'm a fan of Notre Dame, I wish Greg Sankey was a commissioner of the conference at work. Well, we're not
Notre Dame, our mother.
not in it, but you know.
And pardon me.
Yeah. If Mayar and we were in a conference, I would want Greg Sankey to be the commissioner of that conference. I think Greg Sankey's elite at his job. You don't have to like him, but he's good at his job. Big Papa War Machine. It's not for all of college football. If the ACC and Big 12 had a few schools get it together and only lose one game, then there's a good chance all their teams get left out because of the depth.
Well, I don't know that there's a good chance all of their teams get left out. I think there's a good chance that only 2 or 3 of their teams would get in at that point.
But in fairness, I'm not sure the Big 12 and the ACC are capable of getting it together at this point. Just couldn't leave it alone, could you? But I'm ready to get hurt again. You're ready for Kansas to break your balls.
Dude.
And truly, I ask you, let's wind the clocks back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really in the what if game.
Let's wind the clocks back a year.
Yeah, I'm not really in the what if game.
I don't live in a what if scenario.
But if BYU and Colorado had beaten Kansas, does ASU get into the college football playoff?
Yeah.
Do both, and this is the real where the rubber really meets the road.
Yeah.
If BYU and Colorado had run the table at the end of the year, they meet in the conference championship game. BYU wins the game. Oh. Colorado wins the game. Coach Prime's in. Is BYU in? Can't say yes for sure.
In God's name, image, and likeness.
Let's wind the clocks back.
Mm-hmm.
Let's wind the clocks back a year.
The guy you know that I love irrationally.
You got to get stroked.
Lane Train and his hot-ass younger girlfriend.
Honestly, I'd start stroking guys.
I would.
Monty's girlfriend looks like she's 12, but it's not a problem.
Well, you know. If Lane Train had run the table, if Jalen Milroe actually knew how to throw a pass.
God.
And let's say Georgia, Bama, Texas, Ole Miss are all undefeated.
And Vanderbilt.
Shut up.
Not bad.
And do you think those 4 teams get in? I have no question about it.
Yep.
I don't care what happens in the conference championship game. Texas, Georgia, Bama, and Ole Miss are getting in. And SMU would not have gotten in. And Boise wouldn't have had a bye.
That's why we have fine, Mom.
Right? But I go back, excellent drop for once in your life. I go back to Feinbaum's quote about the NCAA being a disaster. The NCAA is a disaster, Baldy said.
Baldy.
Everybody wants to give Roger Goodell the credit. He is powerful, but he also answers to 32 people. I think somewhere along the way, and I don't know how SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti could do it, because right now there are 2 controlling entities. They have to sit down with Roger Goodell and strike some sort of accommodation, because I think Goodell is a college football fan.
You think? Bro.
Again, and I know, again, I know we're seeing the stretch points that we know would be there, but I actually think there are as or more volatile than we thought. Right? Is what Greg Sankey is saying. Now we have a whole different conference dynamic. So what happens? Tie all this together. Everything's volatile. Greg Sankey's the devil, and he's in control of college football. The automatic qualifiers, they're going to be 4 for each of them. Right? That's 8. There will be 2, in my opinion, for the Big 12. That's 10. 2 for the ACC, that's 12. 1 for the G5, that's 13. And then 1 at large, which essentially is going to be the Big 10 or the SEC. That's 14.
Because it's all part of the plan.
There's no reason to go to 16.
Right.
It doesn't behoove them because then they got to make more accommodations.
Right.
My biggest question is, will Brett Yormark and will Jim Phillips bend the knee if they both are guaranteed $16 million minimum? That's the biggest question. If I said to you, Brett Yormark, and this is probably for Big 12 fan in the room, and I mean this, I want to hear from you on this, ACC fan in the room. If I said to you, we can guarantee you $16 million every year, but you got to give us 4 auto bids, 8 total, you get 2, but you each get $16 million. Are you in or are you out? I think you're in. I think you're in. I don't know how you couldn't be in.
Yeah.
How would you say no to that?
How you say no to that? Yeah.
Because again, this all comes down to money. And when you look at the money of college athletics, what do you got right now? You've got Clemson in the middle of every Big Ten and ACC team, as well as Virginia and Florida State. Wait, but where's the Big 12? Oh, there is no Big 12 team. You need the money. You're thirsty as hell. You're putting on a miniskirt. And I'm not sure if you're going to wear anything under it because you're thirsty as hell. You need the money. So you're going to say yes. You're going to sell out. That's what you're going to do. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, Greg Sankey has bald fraud energy. Could be. Jimmy Otson, I think Lane Train is back with his hot ex-wife. Is he really? I hadn't seen that. That'd be disappointing. Norge Coog. So you're saying that Yormark couldn't do as good a job where the SEC commissioner, and Sankey has done. Sankey walked into a more advantageous situation. Okay. No. What did Greg Sankey do? Greg Sankey landed Texas in Oklahoma. He landed a much more, and everybody talks about the money in TV deals. The money for the Big Ten is fantastic. But is it nearly as dynamic of a deal as the SEC has with ESPN and ABC? It's not, because what did the ESPN ABC deal allow Greg Sankey to do? Put money in the pockets of his constituents, and what did he say? You need to start winning basketball games right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because he understands that being on ESPN and ABC every week, being on ESPN.com, being on ESPN Plus, having your 4th and 5th tier games on ESPNU, there's real advantages in that to recruiting in basketball. So it's not just he walked into this advantageous situation. Do you understand how deep the SEC is in basketball? Do you understand? Dude, I'm telling you, and I'm probably the only one, and I know everybody in the Big 12 is drunk on what BYU did the other night, and I love it. Again, I said yesterday, took Kansas apart at the joints.
Yep.
But Mizzou just beat Alabama. Mizzou just won another game against the top 5. The SEC is the best basketball conference in the country today. Right now.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out this year. But yeah, they're looking pretty good.
Looking pretty good. I mean, if you look at the SEC, and I know nobody wants to talk about it. And what are you talking about, Monty? Okay. Well, what's the biggest problem with ACC basketball right now? Yeah, North Carolina sucks. I don't have good things in my life. The issue is you've got SMU, Wake Forest, Clemson, Louisville, and Duke all in double-digit wins. The rest of the conference is single-digit conference wins. That's the biggest issue. The biggest issue is you only have 4 20-win teams in the ACC right now. Right? So if I go to the SEC, and I mean you look at what's going on in the SEC, and you start looking at the fact that they've got 6 20-win teams. 6. Not 5 or 4, 6. And they've got 2 more 19-win teams. And did I mention that they've got 2, 4, 6, 8 top 25 teams in the SEC? That's called depth. So let me get this right. You've only got 3 double-digit conference win teams. But you've got 8 in the top 25. And that includes a 7-6 Mississippi State team and a 7-6 Kentucky team who's ranked 17th and 21st.
Yeah.
That's a good league. And if you haven't noticed, I'll make the case for Missouri because I'm probably the only one. They beat Kansas when Kansas was number 1 in the country, right? And then they beat Florida when Florida was 5th, Ole Miss when they were 16th, Mississippi State when they were 14th, Texas A&M was their top 10 loss.
Yeah.
And now they just beat Alabama 110-98.
A lot of points in college basketball.
God damn. That's unbelievable. And now the other issue is that they're really looking forward to that Kentucky win because they've got what they have left on their schedule is Arkansas on the road, and Arkansas is not going to be easy, even though they're 4-9. That's a 15-win Arkansas team, but you would think Mizzou would win that. Like they're gonna put multiple teams into the Sweet 16. That's where I'm going with all this. So you can say that, well, hey, Greg Sankey, he got a much more favorable opportunity, Monty. Well, I would tell you, I don't care the opportunity you were given. It's what you do with it. And I'm not saying you want to talk about Brett Yormark. I think Brett's a great commissioner. I think he's doing the best that he can do with a conference full of apathy.
Yeah.
Right? When your major football brand is cutting the head coach's salary and publicly saying they did that so they could spend more money on players, that's called apathy. He's in a really tough spot, Brett Yormark. Really tough spot.
Yeah.
So, and I think, again, I'll go back to Deion not getting the Cowboy job. Thank goodness, if you're a Big 12 fan, that Deion didn't leave. So, is what it is. Let's see. Mike Smith, they would have loved if Colorado would have won and made the college football playoff. Oh, my goodness. How many people would have watched that game?
100%.
Come on now. Paul Bagansky.
Hey, Bagansky.
Where have you been? I have not said Bagansky in too long. I have a lot of energy today. I got 7 hours of sleep. It is simple. If the SEC is required to play 9 in-conference games, then the SEC expands by 4 teams to beat up. Well, SEC wants football in Virginia and North Carolina. Yes. That means somehow getting teams out of the ACC contract, which I just don't think how that happens.
Yeah.
And if North Carolina is going to leave, and we have been told this directly by people involved in the situation, if North Carolina is leaving, they're going to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
It truly is as simple as that.
Yeah, it's not rocket science, dude.
So I think it is.
Again, anytime you start going down, hey, ACC team's going to leave before their grant of rights is done, I just don't know what you're looking at.
I have no idea what you're looking at. And, like I look at this. Yeah, that's a really good point. The leverage, a TV industry guy of mine that is watching the show, the leverage that the SEC created by being the biggest conference in business with the best TV company is immeasurable. And I think that's very true because You're not, if you're the Big 12, are you thriving across the board? If you are the ACC,
No.
you're not thriving in the ACC right now. But if you're the SEC, even in the Big 10, are you thriving if you are the Big 10 across the board? Well, Monty, we've won back-to-back championships. No Monty's.
But we're not talking about the top. We're talking about across the board.
Because that's where you win. You win from the middle down. And I continue to, when we're talking about the finances of college athletics, you win from the middle down. Because every conference has the elites, right? The middle down is where you determine what kind of conference are you. Are you a good basketball conference right now in the Big Ten? Can you really sit here and tell me that you think with, and this is with Michigan having a really good basketball season, inexplicably, right? Michigan is 20-5. You've got 5 teams ranked in the top 25. But you have real depth in the Big Ten in basketball. But are you a good basketball league? You're good, you're not great. Big 12 or the Big Ten? Well, the Big 12 is a better league. I don't think that anybody argues right now that the Big 12 is a better league, but the Big 12's got 5 in the top 25, and they're about to have 4 because Kansas is going to fall out of the top 25.
Somehow.
Then BYU may well enter it, right? Because BYU, if you start looking at the way that BYU is winning games right now, it'd be nice if you wouldn't lose at home to Arizona. That'd be great. But you start looking at resumes. My only question about BYU is BYU doesn't beat ranked teams. Well, until Kansas showed up. The game on Saturday at Arizona, dude.
Big deal.
You've got 2 massive games left, and they're both on the road. Arizona, and then in early March, you go to Ames to play Iowa State. Those are 2 massive games for a team that is 9-6 in the Big 12. Massive games. I think the Big Ten is secretly having a really good basketball season, but their football product is not as good, right? So I would say they're doing well. They're just not thriving. The SEC is unequivocally the best athletic league in the country right now.
Yeah.
It's not close.
Yep.
So Norge Coog says Big 12 fans say yes to that proposition, I think, all day. Oak State James, it's good to see you. It's good to missed you yesterday on the show. If I'm the Big 12, I'll take $16 million guaranteed. Yes, you will. Eric Wasikowski, the great Floridian. My only issue is Notre Dame. They need to join a conference. Okay. Stop saying Notre Dame needs to join a conference and tell me why. Give me one reason why Notre Dame should join a conference. Because I feel like we're doing this every day now. Notre Dame needs to join a conference. Why? Radio silence. You don't have a reason why they should join a conference. If the Big Ten gobbles up 2 more rivals, they'd be in a tough spot.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
TJ Beck. TJ, did you guys see all? So we've had 87 crashes, or I shouldn't say that. 87 aviation incidents.
Right.
And I think 69 of those involved catastrophic damage to an aircraft, meaning the aircraft was destroyed or at a minimum had to be significantly repaired. Because there's a lot of these 87 aviation incidents are ground incidents as well, where a Cathay, I think it was Cathay Pacific, was pushed back and then immediately pivoted and put their wing through the back engine of a American Airlines flight, I think. Both planes knocked out of service for multiple months.
So that's what I'm saying. That's just stupidity. That's you being dumb.
Can somebody make a phone call, please?
Yeah, what are we doing?
Can somebody teach the Delta regional jet guy how to slow down? Did you see that he was 40 miles, and I don't remember the exact number, but 40 miles per hour over the acceptable margin for landing that jet that flipped over in Toronto.
Yeah.
Is the video's in here, I think.
Yeah, not the one that flipped over, but
it is the one that flipped over.
Yeah.
40 miles an hour too fast. And he was going too fast. He hit the wrong angle.
Yeah.
That the landing gear collapsed on touchdown and the jet flipped over.
Come on.
And so we lined up on our heads.
Don't take over.
Nobody killed in the incident.
Holy fuck.
Oh my God.
Holy
Look at that jet. Because you're going 40 miles an hour over the margin at the wrong angle to land an aircraft. And you're flying a Delta jet. Maybe that's why you're on a regional route. But my point is, should we start college football season earlier? Skip spring ball? Well, I think spring ball is completely different. I think we're going to an NFL spring model.
Yeah, they're not doing spring ball anymore.
Yeah,
right?
I think you're going to see that it'll be OTAs, and I think you're going to have elongated periods of competition now because most people are not going to play a spring game. I think you're going to have more practices, and you're going to have the ability to be padded in more practices because without the spring game, you're going to need to be able to compete. And it's usually 7-on-7s, but you're going to have closed scrimmages to determine quarterback battles but yeah. The way we have Saturdays for playoff games ending on January 1st, a championship game, and the next day, the Super Bowl, it's going to happen. I'm telling you, I talked to enough TV people who want the national championship of college football on Saturday and the Super Bowl on Sunday. Nobody watches the Pro Bowl anymore.
Yeah.
The Saturday before the Super Bowl is dead period. Like it's not because the Pro Bowl's one weekend. It used to be the Super Bowl was played and then the Pro Bowl was the next weekend. Nobody would go play. Nobody from the Super Bowl would play in the Pro Bowl. So they flipped the script and they play the Pro Bowl and then the next week in the Super Bowl. I think there's a real chance that the Saturday championship game in college football, the next day, that Sunday, will be the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think there's no doubt that that's coming. The Hawaiian golfer, let's see what mood you're in today. Look at what Sankey has turned the basketball arm of that conference into, let alone beat down Missouri, put on Bama last night. Huge. Big Ten has 7 20-win teams. Remarkable. Michigan State and Michigan are the top 2. How long does Tom Izzo have left? I believe in the power of Brett's jawline. I do too.
You know.
But Brett Yormark is playing with 2 legs and 1 arm tied behind his back. Because, again, you can't have the Oak State travesty. You can't have the Utah failing. You can't have Baylor keeping Dave Aranda. Like these decisions, and it's got to happen sooner than later. You've got to make it performance-based compensation in the Big 12. Where if you are going to not win a conference game, we're not going to pay you money out of college football.
100%.
We're not doing it, period. The SEC are putting their football money into basketball NIL, and that's how they are now winning. Well, why isn't everybody doing that? And I would remind people, NIL is one pot. It's not like they're like, okay, here's some football money. NIL is one pot.
Who are you, Arizona?
Exactly. You know. Brandon Butler, if this happens and the other conferences sell their soul, we are going to watch college football that we love die. Well, it's going to happen, I think. And I think you're exactly right. Speaking of basketball, last SEC championship was 13 years ago, and the Big Ten was over 20 years ago. It's been a while. I think one of the things I worry about is the Cinderella is really important to the NCAA tournament. Is Cinderella going to die?
No, I don't think so.
I hope it doesn't. Damian Fowler. Per rumor I heard.
Oh, okay.
I know it's just a rumor, so people don't jump my butt. So it's like that. The rumor was that the SEC and the Big would get 4 automatic bids each. Did you hear that? Well, that's not a rumor. That's what everybody's.
Yeah. What do you?
I don't. That's not a rumor.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about that at length. Big Papa War Machine. BYU losing to teams they shouldn't be losing to at home is iconic.
Iconically frustrating.
It is. It is. Jay McClanahan, 2012 Kentucky and 2000 Michigan State. Those were the days. You know. Copter 69. Monty Copter 69.
Hey, Monty, we're looking down on this new ops building we're building, and it's looking real nice.
Yeah. Jeremiah Champion. Scared to fly at the moment, and I fly a lot.
Yep.
I'll tell you, I flew this past weekend, and I'm a Delta guy. Specifically, I only fly Delta first class. I did something this past weekend flying home from Seattle that I never thought I would do. My wife was in coach. I was in first class. My wife did not want to pay for a first class upgrade. And at that point, one wasn't available.
There you go.
I want you to know I'm a terrible person. I thought about it the entire trip. I sat. You want to know how people are thinking about? I sat in first class Friday night in a terrible travel situation, terrible weather, delayed 2 hours, like awful. Sat on the runway for 40 minutes. I sat next to a dude that was Muslim. We pushed back from the gate and he started praying. Like he started doing like the Muslim bow and he was like doing full Muslim prayer. Across the aisle, like you had sign of the cross, there was a lady holding a rosary. And I turned around and looked back. And there was a dude full on holding a small Bible in his hand praying. Like people are scared to fly right now.
Yeah.
And all the layoffs at the FAA and all the incidents, like it's scary right now.
Well, look, I think, not to derail the whole show on this, but I think that when you're flying, one thing you have to consider is, where you are and the circumstances around the flight. So like if you're flying at a really busy airport, JFK, whatever,
O'Hare,
LAX, you look at these really busy international airports, those are the ones where your risk is higher. There is just more volume going through the pipeline. And that's where shortages in the flight tower could get exposed. Now, I will also say that, when you fly internationally, that's a completely different situation than taking a domestic flight, right?
Yes.
Obviously, when you're flying on a big plane, what they call heavy, obviously, that's a completely different situation. You're going to have a real hard time having as a flight, as like a person in the tower, sending a heavy out on the runway when, like in mistake. That just doesn't happen. You notice all of these pilot errors and these crashes and things like that are typically happening on regional jets, either at night or if it's during the day, it's typically pilot error. So if you're flying internationally, I just don't think you have that much to worry about because rookie pilots not getting on those planes. But the regional ones are the ones where it's like, hey, we need to make sure.
Let's go 40 miles an hour over the acceptable window.
That's the first thing I saw in that video. Like when you're watching the guy try to land the plane, you notice the plane's going from a vertical standpoint.
The nose, look at the nose. The nose is flat. That nose needs to be up.
Yeah.
And what you should be seeing is that plane gliding down, and it's not. And it is 100% pilot error. Yeah. That crash in Toronto was 100% pilot error.
So, again, and this is, my girlfriend travels a lot for her job, and she's scared to fly right now. And I don't blame people for being scared to fly. But what I always tell people, like when you're scared about something or insecure about something, is we as people are insecure because we just don't know or we don't have control. And so it's like, hey, think about the situation you're in. Think about the plane you're flying on. What time of day is it? Where are you going? These are all factors.
TJ Beck, Delta pilot came in hot. Pilot error. What he was trying to do was carry extra speed to counter the 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. They should have been diverted or held until the wind died down.
But they weren't.
And there's air traffic control chatter about him going around. And TJ's like, so what TJ's talking about is there is wind shear, and in this case, it was a diagonal wind across the runway, which is a nightmare scenario. You can deal with if that wind is left to right, if that wind is north to south, okay, I can manage. When it is a gust and it is diagonal and it is up, so it was diagonal and there were updrafts, which is almost impossible. And then you're on a smaller regional jet. How you offset that is think of a golf ball. When it's windy, how do you hit a golf ball? Well, you try to keep the trajectory lower. What that guy was doing was trying to go in a little hot to offset the wind. But in that situation, he wound up when the plane was actually on the ground, he wound up, that nose was what they were saying the term is negative. And he just hammered the landing gear.
Yeah.
And the reason that the plane flipped is the landing gear collapsed.
So then the wing broke and the body of the aircraft rolled.
Essentially, the left rear gear collapsed and so the plane tilted, caught the wing, and the plane flipped over. How nobody died in that wreck, I have no idea.
And how the body of the plane didn't break, no idea.
It's socially acceptable now to clap when your plane lands. Yes,
it is, dude. It is.
And when you've been a member for 18 months. Did Jake just lie about having a girlfriend? Political fact check that. I believe, and Axe is going to add a community note.
Yeah.
Because we all know Jake doesn't procreate ever. Jimmy Otson, damn Canadian pilots. Well, that was a Delta pilot. Probably booed the U.S. anthem.
I don't know what his nationality is, and I don't care. You're a pilot for Delta. You got to be better.
Yeah. The people on the plane should call the advocates. They each got $30,000. Each of them got a $30,000 payout. Can you explain the diagonal updraft scenario with your hands again, asking for a friend? Yeah, I mean, if you look at it and stuff. All right, hour number 2 of the Monty Show, presented by our friends at Prize Picks. Am I a jerk for going against Luka Doncic last night? Before we get to, you got to hear the comments from Tim Pernetti, the commissioner of the AAC. Did you guys see Luka Doncic last night? He was awful. Chubbs had himself a terrible, probably too much. Doncic last night, 5 of 18 from the floor, 1 of 9 from 3, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 fouls in 14 minutes, or in 14 points in 33 minutes. He was terrible last night. Terrible. LeBron has 26, 11, and 7, and they lose 100-97 to Charlotte at home. And I picked against him. Now, I lost on Prize Picks last night because I also picked Austin Reeves, who, of course, speaking of gaped, 8 points.
Speaking of gaped.
2 assists and 2 rebounds. He had a 26.5-point rebound and assist number. Yeah, we didn't get close to that.
Yeah.
We did not get close to that. And then I would remind you, and I'm trying to get my previous picks to load, because who doesn't love a load?
Yeah.
I would also remind you in that game that I took LaMelo Ball to have more than, I'm stupid, 44.5 points, rebounds and assists.
Man.
On a demon. I lost.
Yeah.
It was not good.
Yeah.
Tonight on the old Prize Picks machine, in 4 Nations, Cale Makar with 2 shots more in hockey. Here's the one that I'm not sure where to go. I think you're taking Connor McDavid, 2.5 shots on goal more. But then there is a number of questions. Who do you believe scores goals? Because
I'm going points over goals.
You're going points
to give myself more ways to win.
So there's only two then that I think you can go with.
Yeah.
And this is just my one man's, little Monty's opinion.
Hey, Monty.
I really like Austin Matthews to have a game tonight. The American forward who plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs, or Sidney Crosby. Those are the only two you can take, in my opinion.
Yeah, I took Connor McDavid for 1 assist tonight, Crosby for a point, and Matthew Tkachuk for a point.
I'm going to break my rule tonight.
You have all these rules.
Well, you're going to break them. I'm going with
a guy of simple taste.
A 4-pack flex play.
What?
Cale Makar,
Monty?
2 shots on goal more. Connor McHugecock, 2.5 shots on goal more. Sid the old man, 0.5 point more.
Macaque.
And Austin Matthews, 0.5 point more. Give me a $20 flex play to win a hundo.
Okay.
That's where I'm at on the Four Nations tonight.
There you go.
And here's the thing, you guys. It's never been easier to win on Prize Picks. Open a new Prize Picks account, download the Prize Picks app, use the promo code Monty right here.
Not Morty or
not
Monty.
Monty.
See right here.
Right here.
MONTY.
Monty. Hey, Monty.
Hey, Monty.
Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty to open a new Prize Picks account. You deposit $5. They'll give you 50 more instantly. And it's really easy. Flex play, 3 picks. That means you only have to get 2 of those 3 right. You'll play for the entire basketball season, baseball season on that $55.
Yeah.
Because baseball is so much fun. I do love it. I do love it. Snowing again this morning, Mike says.
Yes, it was snowing here as well.
I'm so tired of winter.
Anytime golf season can come back. Anytime.
I am so tired of winter. I'm so tired of I just can't do it. I can't do it. TJ Beck. Monty, do I dare guess that your extra sleep is because of a very good birthday evening present from Mrs. Monty?
What are you trying to say, dude?
That's a given. You want to know the irony of my birthday yesterday? I don't generally, Mrs. Monty and I don't exchange gifts. Jake's the only one this year that got me a gift.
Uh-huh.
He didn't. I bought Mrs. Monty a Valentine's Day gift. I was going to buy her a ring.
Whoa.
Couldn't get her a ring. It was sold out. The one that I wanted that I had picked out, blah, blah. It wasn't sure the size, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. So instead of spending big bread on a ring, I got her a really pimp-ass pair of Air Jordan 1s for Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
They showed up on my birthday yesterday. I got more clear fish tank water. That was my gift. I am fighting bad fish tank water. But I got clearer fish tank water.
You, Nemo?
That was my gift. Now, don't talk to me about Lion King.
You know,
that was my gift. Was I got clearer fish tank water,
dude.
Mrs. Monty got a really pip-ass pair of Nikes.
You know what the problem is, dude? I don't know what to get you anymore. You've got all the shoes, you got the golf bag, you got the clubs,
hookers
you got,
and blow, dude.
Like what? Where am I supposed to go with it? Like,
TP5 picks.
I guess.
Donuts. Don't buy me donuts. I'm on a no sugar run right now. No donut. You know how long it's been since I had a cronut?
I'm sorry, a nut?
A cronut. Look,
like,
see, you always try to do that. We always try.
I'm
not the one that's single. I'm married.
I mean, it sounded like you said the nut. Maybe I misheard you.
You did, because boy, here's one. Jake's listening for some dude's nut. There you go. Whoa. And for your birthday, she wore nothing but the shoes.
Right.
My wife
that was the plan.
My wife's amazing.
Right.
Jimmy Otson. Wait, what? This is live right now? Monty, we have the same birthday. Yesterday was my birthday, February 19th.
What? Hold on. What do you mean this is live right now? What do you mean, Jimmy? Dude.
We're live at this
what do you
for
mean?
the time being. We're live at this time every day.
Yeah.
A lot of, and I should explain that real quick before we get to how bad the Pac-12 is at stealing teams.
My fucking ass.
Dude.
We do replay our show on live stream.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that you guys watch that. Please hit the like button right now. It really helps the channel grow.
Yes.
We have had well over 1,000 views. We have 500 and something comments already, but we only have 31 likes on the show. Please hit the like button. That really helps the channel grow. That would be amazing. Thank you for that. Yes, we're live right now. David Persons. Then the shoes are on,
bro.
Look at Mrs. Monty entering the studio. Does Jake dating situation mean he's well rested? Jake is in a long-term relationship where he is living against the will of God and as a sinner.
Oh my God, just like that. Oh.
Bailey never heard in Jake's house. Bailey Dietrich, question: should all airports have the advocate's number in case of emergency? Advocates.com. I sleep is critical. Jake is wiped. No, he does get. Jake is a no.
I do the best that I can, man. I don't know what to tell you guys. Like,
Jake is whipped. He is. See Christmas tree. I nut every time this show comes up. Why, Sal? Why?
Dude.
Why?
Yes.
Why? It is.
Yes, dude.
No, not yes. No.
Macaque.
No, not yes.
Dude said I nut every time the show comes out. Hey, while you're nutting, can you please hit the like button and subscribe, please? That would really help us.
Hey, bro, can you nut on the like button? That'd be great, bro.
Like, can you hit the buttons, please?
God.
I don't believe anyone's ever said that on the show before.
And there's a reason.
I'm giving you a fucking answer.
There's a reason nobody's ever said that on the show.
Dude.
I don't break the
my
rules.
God. I give up.
Wow, bro.
Sal is a true keyboard warrior. No. Hey, man, can I just ask, why is the M button on your keyboard sticky?
Well, Monty's.
Sal is clearly not well rested. Smiles and glory holes.
Yeah, dog.
Sal's
Dude.
Sal's mantra in life.
Smiles and glory holes.
That's his mantra in life. Absolutely. I hit the like button and now my buttons are stuck.
F around and find out.
Bro. Dude, I can't, bro. I can't.
The Chad Carter, the Monty Show world leader in nutting and twig twitch.
Twig twitching. Bro, what happened? Dude, what happened?
Jesus, Sal, clean your phone and hit the like button with that.
My God.
Oh my goodness gracious. TJ Beck, Sal's hands are busy this morning. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Look at all of you celebrating your memberships. Nice job. Happy birthday, twin Jimmy Austin, a member for 18 months.
Yeah, so by the way, we never finished explaining Jimmy's comment. So yeah, we replay the show. We've replayed the show.
Got derailed by Sal's nut.
Yeah, during the day now. So what you can do is you can just rejoin. It's a stream.
Oh my
and
God.
By the way, people are picking up on this. I literally label it replay, like the Monty Show live replay. So
Are we at a point where we sit around and no? Anyway.
Yeah.
Sal, you derailed the show. And I'm proud of you for doing so. I am. That was amazing. Thank you for that. Sal wins the show this morning. Yes, he did.
That was iconic.
Hey, look, this show just flew south big time. Yes, it did. You can hear about Sal's nut multiple times today, repeatedly on.
Yeah, we're not making any changes.
And yes, big changes are coming to the show that we will talk about. So yes, please hit the like button. This is why I love the show, going down rabbit and glory holes.
Dude,
exactly.
Smiles and glory holes.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Real quick, let's talk about this Tim Pernetti interview, because I think it's very interesting, and we're seeing a trend in these commissioners and the things that they're saying and how they're saying them. If you missed it, we had Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Navarez on the show. We have, believe it or not, an invitation out to every conference commissioner in the country. And a lot of them are hesitant to talk. And the funny thing that happens is we'll invite a commissioner on the show, and then we'll hear from people close to them. Or we'll hear from an athletic director in that conference, or we'll hear from a booster or an NIL collective in that, close to that situation, right? The commissioner won't come on the show. The athletic director won't come on the show. But it's interesting to see that Tim Pernetti's out there talking, and he's talking about the Pac-12 poaching AAC members. And what I found so fascinating about this, one, I probably shouldn't be surprised. Tim Pernetti went on the John Wilner with Radio Wizard in the Northwest podcast, the Wilner Canzano podcast. And it was, again, zero accountability, no follow-up questions, no real tangible substance in the interview. Because listen to what Tim Pernetti said without being asked a follow-up question.
People think I was upset about it. I wasn't upset about it. I worked at Rutgers. My job every day, like, we were a great member in the Big East, but my job every day at the end of the day was to do what was best for Rutgers, not for the Big East Conference. And that's why we ended up making that move. So institutions vetting what's out there to see what's best for their school, that's their job. I wasn't upset about it, but what we did was we made sure to surround those four schools with experts and expertise so they could separate fact from fiction and make sure they were dealing with, information that enabled them to make the decision. But at the end of the day, I had no chip in that game. Like, it wasn't my decision. So we chose to just make sure that they were well informed. And at the end of the day, I love how it played out. I love that the schools band together and made a joint statement about how committed they were. And the unity of this conference is actually a real thing right now.
No follow-up question, too. Well, wouldn't you say facts from fiction? Like when you talk about X, Y, or Z. No follow-up to that, because why would you follow up a question? And then you listen to AAC Commissioner Tim Pernetti talk about the schools making a good decision.
If I could take you guys back, I remember seeing those four ADs sitting in rooms talking to each other about it and sharing information and, like, what did your offer say? And, what did this say? Because, they received actual offers to evaluate. But I was really proud of how they stuck together. And I think they made a decision that made total sense based on the information at the time. And I also know that then you got to turn around and face your fans. And sometimes fans don't dive deep enough to totally understand why you made the decision you made.
I'm amazed by it. I am amazed by it. I am amazed that the Pac-12, and I think Dr. Ed Scott has talked about this. We've played the bites from him. We've invited Dr. Scott on the show, the athletic director at Memphis. You were asking, as confirmed now by multiple people in the AAC, you were asking those four schools to pay $25 million out of their pocket to join the Pac-12 with no media rights deal. And I think when you start hearing about this and you listen to a guy like Tim Pernetti, the commissioner of the AAC, you listen to Gloria Navarez, I'll go back and play, like when you listen to her talking about her decision, does she regret doing a scheduling agreement with the Pac-12? Do you regret it? Do you regret taking that step? Do you regret having those conversations with the Pac-12?
Not at all, because without that scheduling agreement, we wouldn't have the protections that we had that helped keep the league together.
Boy, that's a heck of a perspective. I give you a lot of credit for that, because it would have been easy right there to say, yeah, I regret it. I wish we hadn't done it. Very direct. Answer the question directly. Go right at it, right? You listen to guys like Tim Pernetti. They go right at it.
Oh, guys, look, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried, I'm not worried, but I wasn't concerned. Certainly when you're 100 days in to a job like this and something like that surfaces. And by the way, eyes open, I knew when I took the job that it was probably only a matter of months before something was going to, surface up and we were going to have to deal with it. So what did I think of it? I expected it. I don't know that I expected it from one conference or the other, but I expected it. Why? Historically, the American has been a breeding ground that has built strong programs that have moved into these conferences. So I expected that, like, we are always walking around with a target on our back.
Like, just go right at it, right? And then you listen to Teresa Gould with Front Office Sports, not go right at it.
And I think everybody on my team thought we had some time to kind of figure it all out. And certainly we were mapping out all those scenarios. Like, was there a pathway in another conference? Yeah. There were lots of talks about mergers with other conferences, and there were a lot of different considerations. And at the end of the day, the path to rebuild the Pac-12, that opportunity came about quicker than I think we would have thought. Yeah. And
just talking around it, not going right at it.
Yeah, and I also don't think being totally truthful about it either.
And I think the issue is that you listen to Tim Pernetti and Gloria Nevarez talk about what the Pac-12 has done and the actions that they have taken. They don't have money to offer people, and they don't have a media rights deal to offer people. And again, I go back to what Ed Scott said on 92.9 The Game in Memphis, when he was talking about not living in what-if scenarios.
I don't live in a what-if scenario, right? Be there. Look, we got to beat Tulane tonight. You want to talk to me about the Pac-12? I want to talk to Penny about Neon Light Night at Tulane and how he's going to win that game. My worry is what's in front of me. If you look backwards, you get depressed. If you look forwards in the future, you get anxiety. I live where my feet are planted, guys, and I got to win today, right? And because if I don't, you're going to talk about that tomorrow. Absolutely. Right? So I just take it one step at a time. If the Pac-12 were to come back to us, we'd listen. We'd continue to do our due diligence for the University of Memphis. I have to. It's incumbent upon me. I'm paid well to do that. Right. And you heard in the Calkins interview, I care about Memphis first. I came here for a reason. This is not about Ed Scott.
Being very direct. And I think he's right. And I think here's the issue when you hear all these different voices and you hear Ed Scott and Pernetti and you hear, Teresa Gould and you hear, all of these people directly involved in the situation. It doesn't make sense to do business with the Pac-12. That's what's resonating now. You hear Ed Scott yesterday talking about, do I really want to fly my soccer team on a two stopover flight to Pullman, Washington?
No.
And pay $25 million at a minimum to get out of the conference? No, I don't. And you hear Tim Pernetti say, is it going to happen again? Yeah, we know it's going to happen again. And you hear Gloria Nevarez say, hey, we were on the verge of an existential crisis, and then we got together in a room, we had real conversations, and we figured it out. And it leaves the Pac-12 in this situation where you have an unsavory taste in your mouth now, where you have left, in my opinion, the biggest mistake the Pac-12 made was not taking the shot. The biggest mistake they made is they missed every shot. They missed UNLV, which would have ended the Mountain West. They got Utah State, not UNLV. They missed their shot.
Yeah.
They missed Tulane. They missed Memphis. They missed UTSA. They missed USF. They missed their shot. So now you lose this position of being in the cover of darkness because everybody sees you coming now. So the Mountain West has a grant of rights, and you're not getting UNLV. And if you do wind up getting them, which I don't think is possible, based on what people at UNLV have told me directly, you're not getting UNLV. And if you do, it's going to cost you tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions of dollars. So, again, maybe you're just doing business like Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. I'm going to wait. And then I'm going to pay way too much for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb.
Right. And
now at the Pac-12, I'm going to wait. And I'm going to overpay if I can get Memphis and Tulane, who most people believe have a grant of rights in the conference. So I don't think you're doing anything that other conferences aren't doing. But it's how you do it. And, Gloria going to the commission, Gloria Navarra is the commissioner of the Mountain West, going to the commissioner of the MAC and saying, hey, we want to approach Northern Illinois about joining our conference. Did she go right to Northern Illinois? No. She went to the commissioner. She followed proper channels. What did Tim Pernetti and the AAC do? What did these 4 athletic directors do? They all got in a room and they communicated openly. Pros, cons, yes, no. Why should we do this? Why shouldn't we do this? What do the numbers look like? No back of the envelope calculations.
Yeah.
They got in a room. They sat at a table. Tim Pernetti. And I think this is really, really important. Tim Pernetti talking about how, they got in a room together.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you consider, Pernetti's, perspective, remember when this happened? Because this happened last September. He had just taken the commissioner job
100 days on the job.
So you think about his role in all of this, and I think it's really interesting. Like, Tim Pernetti is a guy that came from the TV world, right? Tim Pernetti is a guy that is uniquely qualified, in my opinion, to handle these situations as the commissioner of a conference, because he understands the media rights portion better than I think a lot of commissioners probably do, because he's got firsthand experience doing it from the other side. So he knows what those people want. And so I think the one thing that stood out to me was that Gloria and Tim both said, hey, it's not lost on us that we're sort of yes, we're in the G5, but teams and talent are going to leave our conference all the time. That's sort of a fact of life in our situation. And it's not something that we run from. And I think that people like to turn that into, oh, well, you guys are a second-rate conference. You're terrible. That's not what it is. It's much more of, hey, we have a solid conference at our level. And we had these 4 schools get approached by the Pac-12. And it was a beautiful thing to watch these ADs get together and talk and communicate. We didn't try to sway them, but what we did do is give them all the accurate information. Yeah. Because what have we talked about for the last week? We've talked about how, and Ed Scott kind of touched on this, is like, hey, your argument is based on like passion and your feelings are based on passion, but here are the facts of the situation with the Pac-12, and those facts just don't add up to, hey, we're going to go ahead and join that conference and leave our current situation. And so, again, I'm going to bring this up for all the Pac-12 people in the room that tell us we're dumb and don't know what we're talking about. Hey, what is it about the Pac-12 opportunity that would make someone say yes? Because I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to understand, why would someone say yes?
Well, and the other thing that I think Pac-12 fan doesn't want to wrap their head around is, and you don't have to, everybody is telling us the same thing. And now that they're all talking publicly, they're saying exactly what we've said. It doesn't make sense. You look at, again, Ed Scott, 92.9 The Game in Memphis. Listen to his own words, because you've heard him on this show before.
Normally, I wouldn't have put all that business in the streets. Not my style to do all that. You guys had information. Other media outlets had information about that deal that, frankly, probably shouldn't have been out there. And so a couple months into your point, I needed to be able to let folks know why we didn't do it. It was strictly numbers, right? There's nothing more to it. The deal was not any better per cap, meaning what we get currently from the American to what we needed to go out to the Pac-12, considering the increased travel and some of those other things. Look, if you're talking about football or basketball, guys, let's cut to the chase to your point. They charter. They travel differently. Brooks, right? Women's soccer. That guy's is the most wingiest coach that I have in the entire portfolio of our entire athletic department. I'm going to put him on a 2-stop flight to Pullman, Washington, right? And then maybe have to cut his budget because we're not going to have the same disposable income. I'll say it this way so the average person can understand this. It's not how much money you make. It's how much money you have left after you pay your bills, right? You can make $1 million in L.A. and spend $900,000. Well, you got $100,000 left.
Right.
You can make $1 million in Memphis, Tennessee with no state tax, which I don't, by the way, but you could make that much and you have a lot more disposable income.
Right.
So it just didn't put us in a position where I felt like we could continue our ascension, for all of our sports, because I'm the AD for all of those young people and those coaches as well.
I mean, he almost quoted me. It's not how much money you're making, it's how much money you're spending. It's not how much money you're making, it's how much money you have left.
Yeah.
And the financial infrastructure doesn't make sense to join the Pac-12 because whether it's travel, human cost, infrastructure, it just never made sense. So all of that to say, Tim Pernetti, Gloria Nevarez, Ed Scott, they're all telling you what we've told you for months. And really since last September, I guess, August, the Pac-12 doesn't have anything to offer right now today. When they get a media rights deal, and I just ask you again, how much would that media rights deal have to be to make the case to Memphis to pay $25 million of their own money to leave the AAC?
And within that, I think when you're trying to get a media rights deal in your current situation, how unconventional is that media rights deal going to be with your media rights partners? Because you're going to have to say to them, hey, like, this is our baseline right now. This is where we are now. So we understand that value is going to be a little lower. But once we get this done, we're going to go out and try to get Memphis and try to get Tulane and these other schools. What are you willing to pay for those schools? So not only are you having to get one done, it's got to be unconventional. And then everyone's going to say, oh, well, what about pro rata? Well, pro rata doesn't necessarily come into this conversation. That was a Big 12 tokened item that they rolled out because they saw what was coming. I'm not so sure that TV partners are going to be like, yeah, we'll give you a pro rata on this or that. Like, I just don't think
meaning an equal share if you add.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that a TV partner is going to say, yeah, we're going to give you an equal share for every school that you add just on a blank basis. What instead they would say is, hey, well, it depends on who you add. Memphis will get one number and Tulane's going to get a different number. And and that's what makes it difficult. So again, everyone, and I'm going to keep saying this, everyone says we hate on the Pac-12. I'm not hating. I'm instead saying, bro, I don't understand how you're going to walk across this bridge or bridge the gap here. I don't know how you get to the other side.
I really don't. I'm not sure exactly what that is or how that works or what it is that you can do. I don't know. I'm not sure how you fix it. That's the bottom line is I don't know how you fix it if you're the Pac-12. And I don't know that you need to, fix it's probably, you can't keep doing the same thing you've done for years and years and years. Because that's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is, you can go back to the Big 12 days where you couldn't get that deal done. Like, it's been over a decade of time where you have not been able to go and grow your conference. You have not. Do you understand if they'd have got Oklahoma State, Texas, and Oklahoma, when we told you they were, it's one of the greatest Twitter things I've ever put out. Right? Back in that day, it would have ended the Big 12. The Big 12 would not exist today. And the Pac-12 couldn't get it done. The Big 10 gets it done with USC and UCLA. Ends the Pac-12. That was the beginning of the end.
It's over.
So you keep those two, Washington State and Oregon State, and they say, well, we're going to be a power conference. We're going to be a power conference. And all these dudes on Twitter the other day saying the Pac-12 is going to build back and be recognized as an A4 and a power conference. How? Memphis saying that they want to compete at the highest level for in a power conference. How does going to the Pac-12 make that move quicker or shorter? It just doesn't make sense. All right, let's get into your thoughts. Let's see. You guys are still on Sal's comments. Some of the most overused words in the interview at the end of the day. Correct.
Yeah.
This is why. When Brett leaves, Gloria needs to be the Big 12's first call. Oh, I don't know that Brett's going anywhere. TJ Beck, Jakey Two Shakes with the Pac-12's offer serious, $2.5 million to Memphis to pay the rest. That's arrogant of the Pac-12.
But again, it's the same behavior. Like, you're not wrong. It's the same behavior we've seen for how long. And I also think there was a time on our show where we gave the Pac-12 another chance, where I said, hey, okay, like, you're trying to rebuild. Maybe we see a change in behavior. Maybe now we're going to see, like, under new leadership, not really new leadership, just a different person leading the conference. Maybe we see like this rejuvenation. We see, hey, we're going to go about this differently. We're going to understand that our first priority has to be to get a media rights deal done. And that media rights deal, that first one, maybe it's not 10 mil a year or 12 mil a year. Maybe it is, $6 to $8 million a year per school, depending on what school you are. But we understand we have to get that done first and get back to being able to pay our bills. Then we can take that next step towards chasing the bigger fish like Memphis and Tulane. But my point in all of this is that that's not the behavior we're seeing. We're seeing, hey, we're valued at this, $10 million a year by almost everyone's reporting is what the Pac-12 would like to see. And we're not going to expand until we get a media rights deal done. But again, that's just not the right way to go about it, just like it wasn't the right way when it was George Kliavkoff and company.
And it's not that you're poaching teams that's necessarily the problem. It's how you're doing it.
Yeah. How different would this conversation be if Teresa Gould had gone to Gloria and said, hey, we want to add these teams?
If you hadn't signed the scheduling agreement. Because that's what you should have done. You should have said, we're going to, instead of signing a scheduling agreement with you, we are going to add 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 of your schools to our conference. And that's how it should have been handled. That you should go to Tim Pernetti and say, hey, we're going to speak to Tulane, Memphis, UTSA. That's how it should be handled. The problem is the AAC, and somebody, welcome to the nightmare, made the point. UCF, Cincy, Houston, that happened. The Pac recently tried taking 4 schools. Glad they stayed because it would have been lose-lose for those schools.
But I think that's a great point. Look at the difference between the Big 12, quote-unquote, poaching teams versus the Pac-12 poaching teams. The Big 12 is, without a doubt, unequivocally an upgrade for any school that's in the American, right? And everybody universally agrees on that. You're going to make more money. You're going to have more access. It's a total step up. But again, I bring up the geography in the conversation. The Big 12 is also centrally located. Memphis into like Memphis or Florida, like you're just flying 2 hours. You're not flying 5 hours or whatever and doing multiple
Memphis
stops.
to Stillwater, Memphis to
like
Fort
look how
Worth
regional that is
not a problem. Andrew G for $2. Water seeks own level. Grant of rights expire. Pac will be best. Based on what? Explain. See, Guy, you like to come in here and just throw out generalities. When you say the Pac will be the best what? When you say grant of rights expire, nobody has a soon to expire grant of rights. Nobody has a soon to expire grant of rights. And I don't know. Do people understand that?
I'm going to guess most people do understand that. That's not difficult to comprehend.
Do you get that that's why it's $27 million to get out of the American? Do you understand that that's why UNLV is not leaving the Mountain West? Like when you say, hey, they're the best or Pac will be best, what does that mean? Give detail. Tell me exactly what that means. Bradley Dunkel says thumbs down. Mike Smith, Pac-12 was stupid to shun BYU. It was very stupid. Very, very stupid. Tulane and Memphis going to the Big 12 before anywhere else, which is their stated goal. I mean, their whole goal is to get to a power
And
conference.
again, who can blame them? The Big 12 is a nice fit for them. Like that makes sense. And yeah, I mean, at some point, with the changes in college football, there's going to be more consolidation, as I call it, right? Conferences are going to fold. The conferences that remain are going to get bigger. Like that's the process that's going to play out over the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it is. It'll be interesting to see how all of that plays out. I just don't know that you can, and especially with this Greg Sankey conversation we had today.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just anymore overlook the cost of flying from Memphis to Pullman or Memphis to Corvallis, or when you're talking about not having a seat at the big money table. It matters, man. It absolutely matters.
And think how regional the SEC is. I mean, again, if you're flying regionally, short flights, and you're playing those huge games, LSU and Alabama is a short flight. What is that? An hour flight? 2 hours?
And I get worn out on Pac-12 fan not being able to explain their points.
Yeah,
it's
tired.
It gets tired. You have to admire the Pac's commitment to idiocy. The cast may change, but they keep singing the same song. Gould is just a Muppet operated by Scott and Klyavkov. Well,
I mean, it's all the same messaging. It really is. And I'm glad you see that too, because she talks and I'm like, man, this sounds awfully familiar. Like,
well, and don't take our word for it. Again, I ask you, listen to her talk about adversity being the best teacher.
They always talk about adversity being the best classroom. Yeah. And I would certainly say in the Pac-12, we've had quite a bit of classroom over the last few years for me to learn as a leader. I'd say.
Do you understand what she just said right there? I'm learning to be a leader. And I don't necessarily have a problem if you're saying, hey, I'm learning on the job. Can the Pac-12 have a commissioner who needs to learn on the job?
No.
You can't. And if you want to directly contrast that to Gloria Nevarez, she came into the Mountain West with volumes of experience. She had been a commissioner. She had been an administrator. She had overseen women's sports. She worked at the college level. Tim Pernetti worked at the college level, worked in television, knew how to bring people together and, take the murky water out of it and bring them clarity about, hey, here's what you're asked to do. Here's the money. Here's the opportunity. Teresa Gould is talking about how she's learning on the job through adversity in the midst of an existential crisis. So we can talk about cool shit like, oh, water seeks its own level. You don't even know what that means. Explain to me how the Pac is going to be the best. And of course, ghost.
Yeah.
No answer, because that's what Pac-12 fans try to do. That's what the Pac-12 conference does when they go on front office sports and there's no follow-up questions.
You're not having a real conversation with front office sports.
Or with, like, you look at this Canzano-Wilner podcast with Pernetti, it's a dreadful interview.
And the funny thing is, and you were kind of alluding to this, the funny thing is Tim, just says stuff. Like, he just talks and is
lays it out there.
Lays it out. And I don't know, man. Maybe, I'm not trying to talk bad about other people or whatever, but I just get tired of, hey, this person went on this show and they don't ask him a single real question. It's always like, oh, well, where do you see the conference going? Okay, cool. Broad brush, just wildly open-ended question. Hey, how about, with the fact that, the Pac-12 is trying to poach your schools, where do you see this conference at in 5 years when you think about that and you think about the changing landscape in college football?
Yeah.
Maybe something about the grants of rights, or maybe I don't know, but I just wish that when these commissioners and ADs give their time, ask them a real question.
Wait, and so Andrew says current Pac schools want better games, best G5 games. Well, but I agree with you. That's what they want.
But that wasn't your point.
So why are you going about it this way? You tried to burn down the Mountain West. You didn't try to just expand with their unit. You tried to burn down the Mountain West. You tried to undermine the AAC. That's what, in my opinion, you were trying to do. But if you want the best G5 games, do you have that now? You don't. You don't have the best G5 games. Like, what is your best football matchup? Boise and who? Does Boise, Washington State move the needle? It does not. It does not. And this is the problem, I think, for the Mountain West. The Mountain West doesn't have that big game either. And the real truth is, nobody has that game. Nobody has that game. Because I'm not who's tuning in? And this is the $10 to $12 million fallacy that Radio Wizard in the Northwest keeps putting out there, that it's going to be $12 million per year per school in the media rights deal. Who's paying $12 million a year for Fresno State and Boise State to play a game on ESPN, on NBC, on CBS, on Fox Sports? That doesn't make sense. It's $6 to $8 million. And I don't think it's $6 to $8 million for two conferences. I think one conference will get a better deal than the other. And the Pac-12 is in no position to get a better deal than the Mountain West. They're just not. So when you say best games, current Pac schools want best games. And I want to be 150 pounds and 3% body fat. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a billionaire. We all want things, but you have to know how to go about doing that. And we can sit here and, anyway, Roche, Pac seemingly still can't look in the mirror. They can't. They don't. They don't.
Yeah, I just think they refuse to.
Mike Smith, drive-by sniping, pretty much. The Pac decided to promote a temp versus what every other conference is doing. Exactly right. Exactly right. You were selling a bill of goods. You were selling a bill of goods. And Xavier Wolf, I don't know what you're commenting. Xavier Wolf is the only guy this morning getting filtered by YouTube. So,
solid.
As usual, Xavier Wolf contributing to the program. Let's see. Who else? Boyd Lake. There's little substance when the Pac officials talk. That's how you know they're sunk.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. This might be beside the point, but given all the moving parts with the SEC and the Big Ten and the power they have, the Big 12 needs to produce in a big way on the field this year. It's critically important.
Yeah.
Yes, Bradley Dunkel, geography matters.
It does.
And Tanner, I think you're exactly right. We are at a tipping point with, you guys understand that it's already been decided what the college football playoff is going to look like this coming year. You understand that. And my guess is, and most people I talk to think it's going to be 14 teams. And it's going to be 4-4 for the Big Ten and the SEC. And that the automatic bye weeks are going to go away, and it's going to be stacked 1 through 14 by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. And the other thing I think is interesting, strength of schedule is going to be the number one component in deciding the quality of a individual football team's case. So
as it should be.
As it should be. That's going to be very interesting. Brandon Butler, Tanner, it won't matter if the Big 12 or ACC produce on the field. The Big 10 and the SEC will just put the hammer down as a one-off, but just be ready for the end of college football as we know it. And I think the hardest part about this is you'll have to be overwhelmingly amazing. Unless you like Florida State is a one-loss team is going to the college football playoff.
Yeah. Big enough brand for sure.
But if you look at anybody in the Big 12, and this is what I continue to say about the Big 12, there's no brand in the Big 12 that gets the benefit of the doubt. BYU last year, how many times do we have this conversation? BYU couldn't lose to Arizona State. Once they lost to Kansas, we told you hit the panic button in Provo.
Yeah.
Because now you lost the benefit of the doubt. You lost the hammer, right? You lost it. And Arizona State had Cam Scadaboo. They had a great story. They were the Fighting Dillinghams. Kenny was ready to murder people. Like,
yes,
they were always going to get a more of a push because the story was better, because BYU, Colorado, there's no brand here.
Yeah, I think Deion really is the only one in the Big 12 right now that would people would be like excited about and maybe would give a slight edge to.
And he's a brand on his own.
Yeah.
Which is a big difference, in my opinion. Brandon Butler, the Super League is coming, but will the Big Ten and the SEC and whatever schools they poach or add? Well, I think it could be interesting. I don't think, and I know this is unpopular, Greg Sankey understands he needs a national, continental college football game. It can't just be that you are the Big Ten and the SEC and that's who the champion is. Greg Sankey knows that.
You're not a champion if you're not playing everybody in the country.
You cannot be insular, which is to say shut everybody else out. You have to at least have the myth. You have to at least have the dream that is Rome, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to say, oh, yeah, Gloria, we're going to give you one spot. The G5 is going to get one spot. I know that the Pac-12 wants that one spot, so they're the best conference because they want it. We'll give the G5 one spot. That's what you're going to have to take. And then when the Super League comes along, I think the biggest issue is the $20 million revenue sharing number that Gloria Navarez told you on this show most of her universities are not doing. The biggest issue is that number is only going to get bigger. Yeah. It's going to cost you $100 million a year to contend for a national championship. That's how they're going to force people out.
Yeah.
That's how they will push.
So the story will be, to what your point is, hey, the story will be, hey, this school decided they didn't want to be involved.
Correct.
The story won't be, hey, the SEC and the Big Ten pushed them out. Yeah.
We pushed them out.
And that's the PR game.
Andrew for $2. Consolidation is happening in the P4. It is. Same with the G5. Consolidation is not happening in the P4.
Yeah.
You're not shrinking the P4. What are you talking about?
You're just and you're getting to a point where I'm not interested in hearing your comments, because you're not saying what you're doing is you're just making these blatant statements, and you're not saying why or there's no context.
There is no consolidation. They're not shrinking the P4, which is what I think you're trying to say.
No, the P4 is getting bigger.
It's not getting smaller.
Yeah.
And what they're doing is they are dictating. They're not consolidating their power, grabbing every bit of power for themselves. They already have it. They don't have to consolidate. It's already, the power is already with Greg Sankey, and you want to make all these big statements. What you don't understand, money talks, and the Pac-12 doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And they're in a really odd spot. We've never seen it before, where they can't add because they don't have a TV deal, and they can't get a TV deal because they can't add. And now what they've done, and their biggest mistake was they took their shot and they missed. And why that's a huge mistake is because now everybody sees you coming. You're not under cover of darkness anymore. So you hear Tim Pernetti saying, we're ready. You hear the athletic director at Memphis saying they lowballed us.
Well, and what's so funny is you hear Teresa Gould say, hey, you have to be cognizant of the threats that are on the horizon. But that doesn't work for you because you are the threat and everyone else is aware of you now.
And everybody knows how to handle you. So the P4 is not shrinking. That's not consolidation is not happening in the P4.
Yeah, it's just not true. Like
the G5, is it shrinking? No. The P5 is exactly what it's always been. In fact, there's one more G5 conference now because the Pac-12, if they get to 10.
Which I still think is a massive if.
Right? And that's why I continue to tell you, the Pac-12 needs to do everything they can do to help Sac State escalate their timeline. Right? And people, you continue to forget it costs $5 million to become an FBS program, from FCS to FBS. Sac State is telling you we have the money to do that. The timeline is the question. They're probably not an FBS until 2028. You need to help them. They're incredibly important to you, because I still maintain you wouldn't be going after Texas State if you could get UTSA. Right? That's the biggest issue. There's not consolidation. That's not a real thing. The problem is that people like to talk use phrases that they don't understand. That's what this is. All right. Today's lesson for the Pack: money talks and bullshit walks. Yes, it does.
100%.
San Diego State licking the boots of the Pack leadership since 78. Why? They're idiots. So extremely frustrating.
I don't blame you, dude.
And it's what Teresa Gould said yesterday, that, again, I asked Pac-12 fans, well, man, our brand, it was just really clear our brand had real value. Okay, to who? Your brand has real value. To TV partners that you don't have a deal with, to AAC members who weren't willing to foot a $50 million bill at the end of the day to join your conference, to UNLV, who wasn't willing to get into litigation with the Mountain West to join your conference. And the biggest question I have is, are the people in Boise thrilled they made the move they made?
I don't know how they would be.
I don't know how you can say they are at this moment.
And again, the question of what happens if the Pac-12 folds officially and dies. What happens to these schools that join? Do they go back? Would they be allowed back?
I don't know. Boyd Lake, P4 is growing, if anything. I agree. And I'm just, for some context, we don't read comments that are typed in all caps. To Jakey Two Shakes' point, Prime is the brand in the Big 12. Colorado and him move the needle because you either love him or you hate him, and he does things unconventionally.
And whether you love him or you hate him, you watch.
You watch and you listen. Big Papa War Machine. He spent $6 million on $6 on wild opinions. I respect that.
Yeah, appreciate you, bro.
Thank you for helping us. More specifically, the P2 is growing. They've already have all the power. Thank you, Notre Dame. Blame us because we did it. They already have all the power.
Right.
So it isn't a matter of Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey trying to, grow their influence. They have the influence. If anything, I agree with Boyd Lake. It's the P4 is growing. Wait till the Baptist overlords are back on top. I, too, will pay to share ridiculous opinions. We're going to be so back. Exactly. Which is fine. Pack leadership being idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah. My P4 is getting bigger.
Stay hard.
Dude, that's the brand of today's show,
UW fan Jim, good morning. I can see the P4 becoming the P2 unless the Super League gets here first.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't think that Greg Sankey wants that to happen. Because if that happens, you couldn't do it in the way that today's college football is set up. You're not going to push out everybody else so that you can, because TV is not going to pay you more for that. You're assuming that every major recruit would just go play in the Big Ten in the SEC, and they're not. They haven't. One of the things we've learned is that does the Big Ten and the SEC get great recruits? They do. But what inevitably happens is Deion Sanders is right. Hey, that's cool. You got 50 recruits in your class. Good luck getting 5 or 10 of them to be productive players on your roster.
Seriously.
Because all those other ones are going to jump in the portal and become stars. We see it all the time. And guys like Caleb Downs, very rare. Very, very rare. Will Howard going from K-State to Ohio State and winning a national championship, incredible, but also incredibly rare.
Which, by the way, Buddy deserves a lot of credit for that because there was a lot of pressure to win.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. You know, it'll be interesting to see. TJ Beck, if the Mountain West wins poaching fees, is the Pac-12 broke? Yes. They can't afford to disperse the money that they don't have that they promised they would get.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you would be going backwards. At that point, the members who, and this is what I don't fully understand, and I'm more than happy to admit that. I don't understand the dynamic of, hey, these schools or committed to the Pac-12. They haven't officially left yet, obviously, but they've committed to go to the Pac-12 in 26. But if they lose that case and they have to pay those fees and they're unable to pay the fees, then what's after that? Because
I don't know.
Like at that point, because I highly doubt we're going to get into a scenario where the Pac-12 is paying the Mountain West payments over 10 years or something. That's not how that works.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, why would you do that? Number one. But then number two, so if that's not going to happen, then is it just, hey, those schools have to figure out where to go, and then the negotiation just kind of reopens with, whether it would be the Big 12 or the Mountain West? And at that point, if you're Gloria Nevarez and the people who stayed, are you going to hold those schools over a barrel? Or are you instead going to say, hey, it would help the Mountain West push forward if we could get those guys back?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand, like how that'd work.
Jeremy Bolton, the Pac is what we thought they were. It's what we thought they were. If you want to crown them, crown their ass. Exactly, Dennis Green. We know who the Pac-12 is.
Yeah.
I just wonder when people in Pullman and Corvallis will wake up. Did Yormark ever offer them a lifeline? He did not.
No.
The Mountain West could be much better than they are, much better than where they are. I think that's very true.
But I think Yormark not offering them a deal speaks to this media rights partner conversation we've had for the last couple of weeks. Why didn't he offer them a deal? Because he knows it's going to be hard to get value on the back end from his TV partners for those two schools.
I think that was an overwhelming storyline that flew under the radar. I think that the TV people made a lot of decisions for these conferences.
Yeah.
And I think that you look at why Los Angeles, Seattle, obviously Eugene and Oregon, that's a one-off, but Oregon's such a massive brand.
Yeah.
But if you look at Texas and Oklahoma, no doubt about it. USC, and by default UCLA, no doubt about it because it's Los Angeles. Seattle, Washington, no doubt about it.
You think ESPN enjoyed that Holy War game with all that drama?
I'm going to say they did. Why did ESPN? Again, not to go back to what I said yesterday, this is why BYU being a snub in the Pac-12 was such a huge mistake by the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Huge mistake. Huge mistake. Great. More vagueness. Yeah, I'm not doing it. Thank you, Jeremy. You're welcome, Tanner. Prime is right. Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And it's this thing where, and again, every Pac-12 fan tells me I'm an idiot about this. The transfer portal is far more important than the high school kid because you're getting known commodities in the portal. And you're watching Deion Sanders build a blueprint for how to use the portal to win more games. You're watching Ohio State build a blueprint with Caleb Downs and Will Howard. You're watching major universities replace guys like Bo Nix with Dylan Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the P4 win and the G5 cannot. You need Ashton Jeanty to stay at Boise. That was huge, very clearly. But that's becoming more and more rare, in my opinion. More and more rare. It's very difficult with the money that's being thrown at 20-year-old kids to get them to stay in one place. It's very, very rare. P5 to P4 was basically a wash. 2 low-value teams were dropped, and value actually went up. There's not consolidation. I'll just continue to say that.
Yeah.
There's not. All right, couple other stories I want to get to today. Did you guys see the Joe Rogan podcast? I think this is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan's podcast has lost 41% of its listenership and is no longer the number one podcast globally. 41%. Joe Rogan is down. How is that possible? And who did you say was number one?
The number one podcast right now is called the Midas Touch Podcast, which is a podcast that has three brothers on it. I don't know it. I haven't listened to it, but just based on reading about it, it's three brothers. One's a comedian, one's a lawyer. I don't know what the third one does.
And who'd you say the
and the lawyer is Colin Kaepernick's business partner. And so the three of these brothers basically talk politics and kind of make fun of things, and it's got a comedic value to it, which is why it's doing so well. They make people laugh. And what's really interesting is when you dive a little deeper into the percentages of like growth and fall off, everyone's talking about Joe Rogan dropping 41%. But what people are not talking about is that this Midas Touch podcast is up 120%.
It's wild.
And you know, the like there are several others that have made huge jumps. And
and look at Apple's rankings.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan used to be number one by a lot
by
at
a
Apple.
mile.
Joe Rogan's not number 2 on Apple. That belongs to The Daily now, the New York Times podcast. And I just think it is.
And I want to give people some perspective here, right?
Oh, I know the Midas Touch. That's a political podcast.
Yeah.
I know exactly who that is now. Yeah. They have a massive TikTok channel.
So their most recent episode did 698,000 downloads, which again, as I said, they're up 120%. The episode before that did that actually don't give me the number, but they're up 120%. So the point is that whatever they're doing is working. And I don't like, some people are attributing Joe Rogan's drop off to the fact that he hasn't had a ton of A-list guests recently, that a lot of them have been kind of run of the mill, like their names, people know who they are, but they're not like massive, huge star. And I think that's like with our show as an example, we've talked about putting more guests on and going through that process.
We have talked about putting more guests on.
The problem is when you put more guests on and you do it at a rate that Joe's doing it at, people no longer are coming for your take.
That's right.
They're coming for the guest's take. And when you don't have the guests, now they're not interested in listening. And that's my opinion as to why I think that his podcast has taken a little bit of a hit.
Look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Look at the numbers. I mean, it is incredible how many views he has lost. And a lot, the other thing here is he had a certain politician on his podcast that
no comment.
He gave unfettered time to, like, didn't again. And I think this matters. And the more that we get into the front office sports, great radio wizard of the Northwest, when you put guests on and you don't do quality interviews, it pisses people off.
Yes.
And so one of the things that I think we're seeing with Joe Rogan, admittedly, I listen to Joe Rogan far less than I used to. And I don't have a reason why. I don't know why I don't listen to Joe Rogan.
You don't
anymore.
have a reason to.
I think that's true.
The thing.
And he put Donald Trump on pre-election and did not ask him difficult follow-up, none of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he got roasted for it.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely got roasted for it. And you look at the Midas Touch. They are right down the middle. They probably lean more left than right, but they also have huge, strong opinions.
Mm-hmm.
They are fact-based. And you look at all of the people on these shows, and you see like the Ben Shapiro show. used to do 40 million downloads.
Yeah.
He's at 24, and he's only now regaining. He's at 24 point. He was under 20 million downloads.
You know, and again, in fairness, you know, it's not lost on us, certainly, that viewership of any podcast or show or whatever content-based platform you're doing is going to ebb and flow. You're going to have rises, you're going to have low points, but I think when you're Joe Rogan and, you know, you've dominated for as long as you have and you've put out the quality of product you have for so long and been at the top as long as you have, that first time you fall off, if he had dropped 2%, let's say, people wouldn't be talking about this.
Nobody would care.
But 41%, I mean, you're inching closer and closer to half of your viewership just disappearing.
I mean, that's remarkable.
That's major.
And that he's number 3 on Apple.
Yeah.
And Mel Robbins is right next to him. Like right next to him. But you look at, bro, he is under. He is, it's not, I'm shocked by it. Joe does a lot of kooky, weird stuff on his podcast.
Which traditionally would have been fine considering his history, right?
But it's compelling.
Yeah.
It's compelling. The Aaron Rodgers conversations, the ayahuasca stuff,
I remember when Joe Rogan was talking about deer antler felt in pre-workout and stuff. Like, I remember that.
Joe really started like the cold plunge revolution for me.
Yeah.
Like all of that stuff, Joe Rogan. But I think I would agree with you. Joe's kind of lost his identity. And I think too many other podcasts, that's tough. Mike Smith, Rogan is better in small doses. Too much conspiracy stuff. I agree with that. Not to get too political, but many pollsters said that the one reason why Donnie won the Gen Z white male vote was because he went on Joe Rogan and many Gen Zers listened to podcasts. Yeah.
Which I think is a great point. But to that point, and this is again, I think what's playing into his dip here is that Gen Z is not that audience is not committed in the long term to anything.
Nothing.
They are because of TikTok, honestly, they are an audience that is here for a good time, not a long time. They want the dopamine hit, they want the great take, and then they're out. So Donnie doing an interview, I don't disagree. That's part of why he got the younger vote.
And I think, yes, I think there is a burnout effect. And I think when you have such a huge home run with Donald Trump, that's a great interview to get right before the election. But, bro, you better execute. It's Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah.
It is. Why is Bryson DeChambeau a monster on YouTube? Because he talks golf. Why did I think his Donald Trump breaking 50 episode is the largest golf episode ever on YouTube. Because he didn't go full political and all lose his wig, and they played golf. And I think Joe Rogan just mishandled that. Honestly, I think that plays a big part of it. Phenomenal Hebrew, I don't think Midas Touch is completely fact-based, but I respect their grind as leftists. I think what Midas Touch is, if you haven't seen it, they take analytics, they take data, and they build opinions around them. And they debate that stuff. They argue that stuff. They talk about that stuff. You know what you're getting when you go to Midas Touch. We work on that. We have had, and in the comment section, get in there, let's talk about it. We have talked about doing far more guests on this show. But neither one of us wants to put Jimmy the writer on to talk about the ball game last night. But when the Mountain West thing happens or the Pac-12 thing or whatever, I'm going to put a commissioner on. I'm going to put an athletic director. I'm going to put a principal on.
Yeah.
The problem is there are so many. And I look at Canzano and Wilner and I point directly at them. There's so many shitty interviews out there.
Yeah.
Where they don't ask follow-ups, where they don't ask good questions. You're frustrating your guests. Like,
you're not doing an interview at that point. You're doing a scripted conversation.
Yeah. Jeremy Bolton, where is the RSL podcast? We're missing an opportunity there. I think there are fascinating podcasts and topics to be had. But you know how hard it is to get people to execute on those podcasts?
Mm-hmm.
This, I think a lot of people don't remember or don't consider this is a job for us.
Yeah.
This is what we do. It's not the only thing we do, but do you know how many hours a day we spend on this? Do you know how many phone conversations I have for this 3-hour, 4-hour extravaganza? Do you know how many people I text with and talk to and email with and all day long on this? Like, it quite literally is Jake's job all day to make sure our stream stays online, to cut video. I'm not complaining about it, but I don't think people understand how difficult. We don't have 10 producers. So when you tip us, when we ask you, hey, please hit the like button, do you know how critical that is to our success?
Yeah.
Because we don't have, when you look at the scope and size of our podcast, we don't have 57 million viewers a month.
And I'd also point out, when you have that much viewership and you're making that kind of money, it is easy to get complacent, right?
Yes.
You get to, because again, I'm not criticizing Joe. I actually really relate to this struggle that Joe's going through right now. Like, I'm sitting here saying, dude, you were at the top for Lord knows how long. I mean, it must have been 10 years at least. Like, I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
But a long time. And you're at the top. You're getting the best guests. You're doing the great interviews. You're hot on social media. Like, you've got everything you need going to thrive. And at some point, and we all know this, at some point, you climb the mountain and there's always a backside of the mountain. You always come back down. And he's just been fortunate to do it a long time. So I don't know. I'm not sure what he has to do to sort of reinvent it, to sort of get back on the pedestal.
I don't know.
I would tell you, my first thought would be go back to doing what you did originally. Go back to doing your show and then having a guest that is actually compelling. And if you don't have a compelling guest, then don't put a guest on. Like, just, if you're going to do a guest, it's got to be like really good, must watch type interview. It can't just be, just run of the mill guy that no one's ever heard of, or gal that no one's ever heard of, that you're putting on to interview, I guess. Because that's what a lot of shows do. That's kind of the secret that no one wants to talk about, is the shows that put a ton of guests on don't want to do the legwork to be able to put on a good show without a guest.
Pat McAfee show.
Yeah.
Look how much that show has changed. Look how much the Pat McAfee show has changed. I never watch the Pat show anymore. Now, I know I'm the only one because he's got a massive audience. But Aaron Rodgers, we're watching Aaron Rodgers last night. And his thing on Netflix, it's really compelling. But he talked all about how on the day of the Green Bay Packer trade, he didn't go on Pat's show. He was supposed to. He didn't go on the show. And how many incidents has Pat had with Aaron Rodgers where it's gone horribly wrong? Because Pat's not going to check Aaron Rodgers, and Pat's not going to fact check Aaron Rodgers, and he's not going to stop him from saying things.
Yeah.
It's gone horribly wrong. And you look at how the Pat McAfee show has turned into a show that's not about Pat McAfee anymore, which is why I originally watched, because he is really compelling and interesting. Shows change, and it's not for the good most times, right? Like, again, we've talked about this all the time. There's big changes that are going to come to our show in a couple of weeks here for a very clear reason. You will understand it when we tell you what it is. But you can't believe that you're always going to be on top of the mountain, because there's always somebody coming. And I think this what we do, I cannot explain to you how much work it is. It is a lot of work. I get up at 4:10 a.m. every day to do this show, when I don't have to, because frankly, we don't make a ton of money doing this show. Mm-hmm. This show does not pay anybody's bills, but it's fun and we have a great time and it's entertaining and we're working towards that, right? And anybody who's watched this show for a long time, we've stripped it down. We've taken a lot of our advertisers off of it. We have changed the way our business model has worked, and you'll understand it once we explain what we're doing. But it is a lot of work.
Yeah,
it is a lot of work. Jeremy Bolton, I think your best guess was some clown who showed up with a headband wearing a Caruso jersey, and you let him on the mic for 5 minutes.
Yeah. What a buffoon that
Remember
guy
the
was.
days when Jeremy Bolton was on the show? I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes, Sal Capone, hit the like button, but Sal. Fat Jesus, I kind of already was. What did Fat Jesus says? You should have Tanner on as a guest. Tanner got to a point on this show and he just could not handle it. Like Tanner was a
legend on the show.
Tanner was a full-on, and this is what a lot of people in our space don't understand. Oak State James right now is a character on this show.
Play your role.
He's going to talk about his wife being ugly. He's going to talk about stadiums and IPFs.
Macaque.
And he's going to tell you that Oak State is the greatest football program ever, and they've had the best offseason of any program in the country.
In the ops building. Don't forget about the ops.
Don't forget about the ops building. And they're building an amazing ops building.
Yes. You're playing a role, dude.
You're playing a role.
And most days are very good at it.
And guys like Jeremy used to be the mayor of Montytown. He makes Alex Caruso jokes. His kids, Alex Caruso became such a thing with Jeremy in this show. His kids bought him an Alex Caruso jersey. That's what great shows are about. That's why I think we have a pretty good show. Is our show the best? No. I'm not the one. You're the one. Whatever. What I'm telling you is this is a lot of work. We don't take it for granted. When again, hit the like button because we need it. We need it.
Yeah.
It is. I just can't tell you how excited we are for the future. But when you look at a guy like Joe Rogan, think about how you consume stuff. 72% of this show is 72% of the viewership on this show is on a big screen TV.
Mm-hmm.
70% on a big screen TV. People watch on a TV. They don't watch on their phone as much as they used to. So, as you were. LOL, get the Locked On Big 12 guy and call him out for all the clickbait videos.
Again, I don't criticize anyone for doing clickbait. That's your job on YouTube.
You better deliver.
But yeah.
You know. So when are you guys going to get Emeritus Emperor McNabb on the show?
Please.
Probably never. Maybe. I'm watching on my phone, fun fact. And people still do, but more than 70% of the viewership of this show is on a TV.
Yeah.
Which is wild to me. Absolutely wild to me. Fat Jesus, strippers in the background? Well,
yeah. You know.
Could be. Absolutely could be. The Monty Show is always presented by our friends at The Advocates at theadvocates.com. You never answered. Do you guys want more guests on the show? The Advocates, where you never reach into your pocket to get clear, risk-free advice because you don't pay the Advocates unless and until they win your case. If you get in an accident today, you get hurt at work today, get online. You can chat with an injury attorney 24/7, 365 at theadvocates.com. Until tomorrow, say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.